Welcome to Life Confessions TV. Try to relax and feel the story.
His lawyer leaned closer to him and whispered something. Just a few quiet words. And suddenly Daniel Carter's face went completely white. A moment earlier, he had been leaning back in his chair like a man who had already won. The same confident smile I had watched across the breakfast table for 15 years was still on his face. But then his hands started shaking. The papers he had been so eager to sign suddenly trembled between his fingers. And for the first time in 3 years, I smiled. But to understand why that moment mattered, you need to know how we got there. Because to everyone watching, it looked like I had completely lost. My name is Emily Harper. I'm 34 years old. And until 3 months ago, I was married to Daniel Carter. 15 years of marriage. Long enough to build a life. Long enough to build a business. Long enough for everyone around us to believe that Daniel Carter was the genius behind everything we owned. But that wasn't exactly the truth. I met Daniel when I was 17. I had just finished high school early and taken a job as a file clerk at a small law firm in Dallas. The pay was terrible, the hours were long, and I spent half my day buried in paperwork. But I loved it, because for the first time in my life, I was independent. By 18, I had worked my way up to legal assistant. I learned how contracts worked, how companies were structured, how people protected their assets. Those lessons turned out to be far more important than I realized at the time. Daniel was 24 when we met. He came to the firm as a client during a small business event. He was charismatic, ambitious, and full of big plans about building a real estate company. He talked about the future like it already belonged to him. About the properties he would develop, the investments he would make, the empire he would build. I remember laughing and telling him that if he ever needed help filing paperwork, I was very good at that. Apparently, that counted as flirting. We got married when I was 19. Our son Noah was born the following year. Daniel started his real estate company not long after that, and when the business began to grow, he asked me to leave my job at the law firm and help him full-time. He said he needed someone he could trust, someone who understood contracts, someone who could manage the finances. So I said yes. For more than a decade, I handled everything behind the scenes: accounting, client communication, contract preparation, scheduling contractors, managing payments, organizing marketing events, designing model homes, running the office. Daniel was the face of the company, but I was the one keeping it alive. At every networking event, people shook his hand and congratulated him on his success. And I stood beside him as his wife. That part never bothered me at first. I believed we were building something together. But somewhere along the way things changed. Daniel started making decisions without telling me. He started staying late at the office more often. He became more critical of my clothes, my cooking, my lack of ambition, which was ironic considering I was basically running his entire company for free. Then one evening, 3 months ago, he came home and told me he wanted a divorce. Just like that. No apology. No explanation. He sat at the kitchen table while I was cooking dinner and spoke the words as calmly as if he were discussing weekend plans. I want the house, he said. The cars. The company. Everything. Then he added something that hurt even more. You can keep Noah. Like our 16-year-old son was an item on a checklist. Like he was something Daniel was generously allowing me to take. I remember staring at him, trying to understand how 15 years of marriage had ended so casually. But what I didn't know then was that Daniel had already been planning his exit for months. He already had a lawyer. He already had a strategy. And he was absolutely convinced that he was about to walk away with everything. What he didn't know was that I had discovered something 3 years earlier. Something buried deep inside the financial records of his company. Something that changed everything. And instead of confronting him when I found it, I waited 3 very patient years. Part 2. When Daniel announced the divorce, everything changed almost overnight. Within days, he had moved me into the guest bedroom of the house we had shared for 15 years. Within 2 weeks, he started bringing his new girlfriend around. Her name was Madison Blake, 27 years old, worked in the marketing department at his company. blonde, confident, perfectly styled. The kind of woman who looked like she belonged on social media ads for expensive gyms and luxury vacations. She walked into my kitchen like she already owned the place, used my coffee machine, sat on my couch,
Cooked in my kitchen.
Daniel didn't even try to hide it. They laughed together in the living room while I packed boxes upstairs. But the humiliation didn't stop there. Daniel canceled my credit cards. He said it was necessary to separate finances during the divorce. Then he suggested I should find another place to live. In the house I had helped pay for. In the house I had designed room by room. His mother even came over to help me pack. By help, she meant deciding which of my belongings I was allowed to take. Jewelry Daniel had bought me, marital property. Furniture, marital property. Decor, marital property. Most of my things were thrown into garbage bags. Not boxes, garbage bags. As if I were being removed from the house like trash. Everyone around us believed I was completely powerless. A woman being discarded by a successful husband. And for a while, I let them believe that. Because what Daniel didn't know was what I had discovered 3 years earlier while reviewing the company's finances. It started with something small. A transfer I didn't recognize. Then another. Then a pattern. Money leaving the business accounts and moving into places that didn't make sense. So I started digging. And what I found shocked me. Daniel had been borrowing money against everything we owned. The house alone had 3 mortgages. The business had multiple lines of credit. There were unpaid taxes, vendor debts, equipment loans. And that was only the beginning. When I added everything together, the numbers were terrifying. Nearly $2 million in debt. But from the outside, Daniel looked incredibly successful. Expensive cars, luxury vacations, designer suits, high-end restaurants. What people didn't realize was that most of it was borrowed money. The entire lifestyle was built on loans. A house of cards. And the worst part? Daniel had also been gambling. Bad investments. Cryptocurrency losses. Secret expenses I had never known about. By the time I finished tracing everything, one fact was clear.
We weren't wealthy.
We were deeply underwater. That night I sat in the kitchen surrounded by financial documents and realized something important. If I confronted Daniel, he would deny everything. He would manipulate the situation. And he might even try to access the only money I truly controlled. Because I had something he didn't know about. Money that belonged only to me. Years earlier, before leaving the law firm, I had built a retirement account worth about $170,000. And when my grandmother passed away, she left me an inheritance of $350,000. Her will had been very specific. The money belonged to me alone. I had never mixed that money with our shared finances. Never used it for household expenses. Legally, it was separate property. So instead of confronting Daniel, I protected it. I placed the entire amount into a trust for my son Noah. Irrevocable, untouchable. Then I documented everything about Daniel's finances. Every loan, every debt, every hidden account. And I waited, because I knew something about men like Daniel. Eventually, they always make the same mistake. They believe their own story. And when Daniel asked for the divorce and demanded the house, the business, and everything else, I realized he had just walked directly into the trap. Part 3. When I finally showed my lawyer the documents, she was silent for nearly an hour. Her name was Laura Mitchell, a tough divorce attorney with more than 20 years of experience. She read through every mortgage statement, every loan record, every financial report. Then she looked up at me slowly. "You've known about this for 3 years?" she asked. I nodded. I was waiting. For what? For him to leave. She leaned back in her chair and stared at me. "You realize what this means," she said. I did. Daniel thought he was demanding assets. But those assets came with something else.
The debt.
The mortgages. The business liabilities. Everything. If he insisted on taking full ownership, then legally he would also assume full responsibility for every dollar owed. and Daniel had absolutely no idea how much that was. The next 3 months were the easiest acting job of my life. During mediation, I looked exhausted, broken, defeated. I asked for almost nothing, just a small settlement to start over. Daniel accepted immediately. He thought I had given up. His arrogance grew bigger every week. He bragged to friends that I hadn't even tried to fight him. His mother told everyone that he had kept everything. Madison began redecorating the house. They truly believed they had won. And then the day of the final court hearing arrived. Daniel walked into the courtroom wearing his most expensive suit. Confident, relaxed, certain that he was about to walk away with the perfect life.
The house.
The company, the cars, everything. The documents were passed around for signatures. Daniel signed quickly, barely reading, just page after page, until his lawyer reached the final section, the liability disclosure. I watched his lawyer's expression change as he read. Confusion,
Concern.
then shock. He leaned toward Daniel and whispered something. And that was when Daniel's hands began to shake. "You're assuming all the debt," the lawyer whispered. Daniel finally looked at the numbers. The mortgages, the loans, the business liabilities. Nearly $2 million in obligations. And every one of them now belonged entirely to him. His face turned pale. "You knew," he said, staring at me. I met his eyes calmly. "I handled the books for 11 years, I said. "Of course I knew." The judge reviewed the documents. Daniel had signed voluntarily. His lawyer had even advised a financial review earlier, which Daniel had refused. Everything was legal. Everything was clear. The agreement stood. Daniel had demanded everything. And he got it, including the debt. Part 4, final. The collapse happened faster than anyone expected. Madison moved out of the house within 2 weeks. Apparently, bankruptcy wasn't part of her long-term relationship goals. Daniel tried to sell the house. But when a property is worth less than the debt attached to it, selling isn't easy. The business started missing payments. Creditors began calling. Then came the lawsuits. Within 3 months, Daniel was meeting with bankruptcy attorneys. The empire he had bragged about for years had collapsed almost overnight. Meanwhile, Noah and I were settling into our small apartment. It wasn't glamorous, but it was peaceful. And most importantly, it was ours. One evening, Noah sat across from me at the kitchen table and asked a question. "You knew this would happen, didn't you?" I smiled slightly. I suspected. He shook his head in disbelief. "You waited 3 years." "I wanted to make sure you were safe," I said. And he understood. The trust fund remained untouched. Over $500,000 secured for his future. College, a first home someday, a safety net no one could take from him. As for me, I finally went back to something I had once loved. Interior design. The same talent I had used for years staging Daniel's properties. Now, I was building something of my own. One small project at a time. About 3 months after the divorce, Daniel showed up at my apartment. He looked different. Tired. Older. Like someone who had just realized how badly he had miscalculated. "I didn't know it was this bad," he said quietly. I studied him for a moment. The man I had once loved. The man who had tried to take everything from me. "You asked for everything except Noah," I said. "You got exactly what you wanted." He stood there for a long time after I closed the door. I watched through the peephole while eating ice cream. Best show I'd seen in years. 5 stars. Would definitely watch again. And that's the thing about patience. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it isn't dramatic. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting someone sign their own downfall.